Today we're going to be talking about how to pick up dropped objects with both your hands, and then also how you can use your cane as well, and some modifications if you do have trouble squatting down or bending over to reach down. But first we have to go over how to protect your head and face, because when you're picking up a dropped object, you have to make sure that you're not just bending down or squatting where there could be something as an obstacle like a chair or a desk that you could ram your face into, or a wall, depending on where you're at. So to start off with, to protect your head and face. So if you haven't already, don't worry, I don't need you yet, Kevin. You don't need to demonstrate or anything.
Okay, because I'd probably do it wrong if I did. So
he looked like he was ready to go.
There's the textbook way of doing it, and there's the Kevin way of doing it. So it's not always accurate.
So what you're going to do is you're initially going to raise either whatever arm you're more comfortable with, and you're going to put it in front of your face, kind of at eyeball level. And you're going to extend your arm out so your elbow is in line with your shoulder in front of it. So it's directly in front of it and on parallel with the floor. And then you're going to put your forearm facing outward away from your face. So the same direction that your face is facing, your forearm will be facing. And then your hand will be palm facing your face, and then the back side of your hand outward. So that's the one that's facing the wall. Because if you put your palm out, you are risking touching something or hurting the palm of your hand. So it's safer to use the back side of your hand to protect your face. And your fingertips do not want to be faced out. They want to be sort of curved in towards your face as well, so you don't risk hurting your fingertips. So making sure that those are curved in just enough to protect those as well. You want to make sure that your hand is about 10 inches to a foot away from your face, just to make sure if you were to hit something, you don't smack yourself in the face while you're bending down. You have enough reaction time to stop the hand from smacking you in the face. If you are uncomfortable with turning your hand the whole way towards your face, you can always use the one side of your hand where the pinky's at. You can kind of turn that more out away from you rather than your entire hand facing your entire palm facing your face. It's a lot of facings.
It's a lot of
facings.
Yeah, a lot of facing.
So just make sure that your hand is, the major part to remember is that your hand is about 10 inches to a foot away from your face, so you don't smack yourself in the face while you're bending down, and there's enough reaction time to stop you while you're squatting. So that is to protect your head and face. If you do have trouble holding your arm up due to shoulder reasons or any sort of disability that could stop you from holding your hands up, what you can do is typically wear a visor or a hat, which can also protect your face during any portion of traveling or mobility, so that way you can protect that as well. So now let's move on to dropped objects. So I'm going to kind of talk it through, and then we'll have Kevin demonstrate several objects of dropping, and I'll review the things that he's doing as he's doing the objects. So when we first drop an object, a lot of people, the first thing that they want to do is they kind of get a little flustered, and they might move their feet, they might turn their body, and just kind of go like, oh gosh. So
Guilty.
as soon as you drop that object, the first thing you want to do is stop and listen. So do not move any part of your body, just stop and listen to where that object is dropped. Sometimes it is hard to hear, so depending on the surface, if it is wood or tile, it's going to be easier for you to hear where it drops as opposed to carpet. And if it is on carpet, typically where it drops it's not going to roll very far, but if it is on tile or wood, it may roll. So making sure that you're listening until the object is completely stopped making a noise. And then once you hear the object stop, you kind of want to either point your toes or your body to the direction that you heard the object fall. That way you have a reference point from the moment you start squatting down or bending down to go for the object. You have that reference point with using your body and or your toes to point you in the correct direction. That point of origin is also going to help you maintain when you stand back up the direction that you are either walking or facing, because if you are to move your body and you were and you don't have that direct point of reference, you could get turned around in space and time, and that's just going to make, not only are you flustered that you dropped an object, but now you're flustered because you have no idea where you're at in the room. So after we plant our foot pointed in the correct direction, we're going to protect our head and face. So that is going to be the first part. So you're going to put that hand up, facing either the back side of your hand or the outside of your hand pointed outwards. Then you're going to go down into a squatted position. You can either, if you have trouble actually squatting, you can bend down, but it's highly recommended that you kind of go into a squatted position while keeping your body erect. So you want to make sure that when you're going down, that you're kind of going into a catcher's position rather than bending forward. You're less likely to smack your head on any sort of desk, chair, or wall if you go in a straight line down and just bending your legs rather than bending your torso as well. So just trying to stay in a straight up and down position with your upper half of your body.
I know, but for me, it's very disconcerting what I have done in the past where I've bent down and I've hit my face. Your face is so sensitive, and it's very painful and frustrating.
When you hit your nose, that makes you tear up.
It does.
That's the worst part.
It's an emotional experience at that point. No control. Eyes water up. Yeah, it's very disconcerting.
Yeah. Just try not to move and just squat down as best as you can. Once you're down towards the floor, I know I'm not in the center because Kevin's right next to me. So no, you're fine. You can stay here. You're good. I know I'm kind of on the far left, but anyway, so the next thing that you can do is, once we get down, we're going to figure out where we're going to begin. So the first part is you search on your left and right side of your body, and then you search in the middle of your body. So directly beneath where you're squatted down, and then on your left and right, because typically when you drop an object, it's not going to go that far away from you. Typically it may be directly around you in just the general perimeter around your body. So making sure that you check left, right, and center, and maybe a little bit behind you, just to make sure that the object isn't just right there. You don't have to go through the whole process of search patterns in order to find the object. So if it is not in those areas, the next thing, there's 3 different ways that you can find an object. You can use a circle pattern, a fan pattern, or you can use your cane. So we're going to start off with the circle pattern. So you're going to, once you squat down, you're going to place your hands at midline, and then you're going to wave your hands out and do like a Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off with your hands. So you're going to start in a small circle and then slowly making the circle bigger and wider around you. If you have trouble staying in that squatted position, you can alternate your hands, so you can kind of go left and right in that circling position, and using the hand that isn't circling to hold your body upright. You also want to overlap your circles, so you continually have that reference point and you're continually making sure that you don't miss any areas. The next thing that you want to do is you can do the fan. So you're starting at midline, and then you're kind of sweeping your hands out towards the outsides of your body in an arcing position, and then you're moving away from yourself, forward towards the direction where an object could roll. So we're starting off at midline, and we're arcing our hands left and right, but then we're going away from our body directly forward. So that's what we do when we're using the fan. If you have trouble with that, you can always use your cane. I know this is the way that Kevin likes to do it, is using his cane. So once you go down to the floor, you're going to lay your cane flat on the floor where the grip is at midline and the tip of your cane is pointed away from you. perpendicular to your body. And then you lay your cane flat, and then you can do the same thing with a fan. So you're going to arc your cane left and right and just kind of turning it where the grip stays at midline and the tip of the cane goes to the left and to the right, almost like a gas meter or a speedometer. So it's kind of going in that arcing position. You can also move your cane from side to side. So you're almost making a rectangle with your cane. So you're taking the cane grip from your left hand, sweeping it all the way across your body to the right side, as far as you can get it. So not only are you getting directly in front of your body, but you're getting almost a 4 foot to 5 foot radius up away from your body, because your hands can't necessarily always reach that far. So the cane can actually get further away from your body without you having to move your feet or lean too far forward. Anything, Kevin, that I've missed?
No, I think you've been pretty thorough.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to attempt to demonstrate some of these things.
Yes, awesome. So Kevin is going to show the systematic ways that you can search for a dropped object. So I'm going to position Kevin to where I want him to stand. So, and then I'll hand you the objects. All right. More towards me, please. Yes. Do the hand gestures first. All right. Yeah. So right there, and then I'm going to bring the camera towards Kevin, so it's going to be pointed towards the ground. All right. Kevin?
Hold on, I need to know I'm getting care of. Okay, now I'm good.
All right, so we're going to start off with a Sharpie. It is a bold writer, so I'm going to hand that to Kevin. There's their Sharpie. So he's holding the Sharpie, and what he's going to do is he's going to accidentally drop the Sharpie. So go ahead and drop it. Oh, no. All right.
Where's my Sharpie?
So the next thing he's going to do is he's going to protect his head and face. Make sure before you squat down, put that hand about 10 inches to 12 inches away from your face. There you go.
Okay.
Now you're going to squat down into a catcher's position. Kevin likes to go on his knees, which is totally fine. It makes it easier for him to stay in a structured position. As you can see, his body did not shift left to right. He stayed directly facing forward. And now he's going to use both of his hands on the ground and then going to do a circling Mr. Miyagi pattern to find that pen. And he found it. Now, before he stands back up, put your hand back in front of your face, a little bit above your head. So when you're standing up, you don't run into anything in case you had to duck underneath a table. And then he's going to stand himself back up. As you could, if you are visual and you could see, his right foot did not move. So the only foot that he positioned was his left foot, and he put his left knee on the ground. That right foot didn't move. So in case he was walking in a direction, he could maintain that straight line of travel.
It's really what might happen for a lot of folks is they drop and then they do this.
So he is spinning around in a circle and kind of just trying to figure out what to do
makes
next.
People feel much more disoriented, which that's totally the natural thing to do in the beginning, right? If you're not familiar with the technique.
So making sure that your toes are still pointed in that direction. So now he dropped the pen again.
Luckily, I didn't roll too hard. But I think on carpet, it kind of stops the momentum a little bit compared to tile.
Yeah, so now we're gonna drop a battery, which is more likely to roll a little bit. So here is the battery.
Oh boy.
Yeah. This one, you're gonna do a arc fan pattern rather than the semicircles. So go ahead and drop the battery. All right.
I think I heard it.
Yeah. So he's going,
heard a thump.
so first he's gonna protect his head and face.
Just for my own just review, so when I did the fanning pattern, is it like this?
That's the semicircles.
Semicircle.
The fan is arcing from left to right, starting at midline. So you're gonna go out and then back in again in an arcing position. Yes, like that.
Okay.
So we're gonna bend down, that right foot stayed still. Now he's going to, and then fan in and out and get your and keep going away from your body with your hands until you find that battery. And if he doesn't originally find it directly in front of his body, what he may need to do is kind of move his body just an inch or two forward and then keep sweeping.
Now this will be a lot more fun if it's snow.
Snow angels. Oh,
There
and
we
look,
go.
you found your battery.
Yes.
Now, the important thing to remember is if you do have to move forward to move a couple inches, to make sure that you're not changing your body's positioning. So you're not turning your body any way left or right. You're still maintaining that straight line of travel while you're moving your body. So when you stand back up, you don't miss out on where the direction you were going. So the next thing that we're going to do, Kevin, is I'm going to hand you a card, like if you were to drop a credit card. You're going to take your cane out now.
It'd be a lot cooler if there were a lightsaber involved. All right. So I'm gonna drop this. Okay.
All right.
Now, I think the first technique you talked about was the rectangle.
But you want to be crouched down as
Crouch
well.
down.
Yep.
So, show this correctly. I'm gonna
Protect your face.
protect
Good.
my face.
That right foot is still staying stationary to make sure that he knows where he's going.
I'm a lefty. Just practice.
So
naturally, so I'm gonna start on my left side.
So yeah, so we're gonna do the rectangular position. So he's holding the grip in his hand while the tip is pointed out away from him, and then he's going to sweep to the right from the left. Oh, you missed the card. Card's too flat. Ooh, did you hear it? Keep that cane flat on the floor. So you don't want to pick up the grip off the floor. You want to make sure it stays flat on the floor. Yeah, there you go. So the difference between Kevin missing it and hitting it is because he lifted the grip off the floor rather than keeping it as a pivoting point towards his body, which made him miss the card because the cane was slightly lifted off the floor. So making sure that if he is sweeping it using his cane, that the cane is completely flat on the floor without being lifted off at all.
So when I go to retrieve it, Alex, what would be the best way to do this?
So you will follow your cane in the direction that it just ran over the.
I need to walk
Yep.
on?
But you need to protect your face.
Protecting your face is important. Aha. There we go.
Lovely. Good job. Here, I'll take the card from you so you can stand back up. Protect your head as you stand back up. Good. Excellent. Good job, Kevin. All right, so I'm gonna have Kevin come back and sit with me. All right, so those are a couple of the ways that you can find a dropped object. Now I'm gonna go over some of those modifications that you can do for somebody that may not be able to bend down or crouch down position like that. If you did drop an object, you can use your cane using the tip, but it is going to be a little bit complicated because the tip is so thin. So what you can do is you can take off the one, if you are using a Ambutech foldable cane, you can take off just the bottom part of the cane and lay it flat on the floor and then sweep your cane using just the one portion of the cane onto the floor, if that makes sense. Is that clear for everybody?
Any questions so far?
Doesn't look like it. I thought I saw something in the chat. What about the top of your head?
Alex, Liz says, what about the top of your head, not just your face?
So the face is when you're bending down, but when you're coming back up, your hand is more above your head. So when you bend down, your hand is more in front of your face because you don't have to be worried about the top of your head. And your hand is at the 10 to 12 inches in front of you. Your head shouldn't hit anything. Your hand or your forearm should actually hit something prior to your head. And then when you're standing back up, you want to put your hand more above your head. So it's rather than in front of your face, when you're standing up, it's going to be more above your head rather than in front of your face as you're standing up to protect that head. Does that answer your question, Liz? Wait for the chat to come through.
I feel some of these techniques, they take a little time to get to
Mhm.
become natural. And,
Yeah.
you know, and at first there's a lot of moving parts. So, and I'm talking a lot, you know, to myself here.
Do you want to scoot
as
over a
well.
little bit? You might be
And
quiet.
I might be a little muted. No, I was just saying that some of these things, there's a lot of moving parts, and the more often we put them into our routine, probably the more familiar, the more, I guess you develop that muscle memory probably.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yep, that does, except bending down,
Mm-hmm.
not just covering my face. I have hit the top part of my forehead bending
Are
down.
you putting your, so when you put your hand out, if your hand is in the proper position, your forearm or your hand should hit any object before your face does. So if you're
clipping the top of it, clipping the end of a chair at the top of your head.
yeah, so if your hand is far enough, it's just like the cane. If you are angling at the correct position where your elbow is in line with your shoulder, and then your hand and your forearm are about at a 45-degree angle going towards the ceiling, and you're bending down, that should 100% stop you from hitting a table prior to hitting a table.
yeah.
Because there should be enough reaction time that even if your hand doesn't hit it, your forearm or elbow should hit it. So
Yeah, because that should serve as a buffer zone
yeah.
for what's that, you know, around.
Is your
So-
hand facing the back of your hand facing out, or the
Sorry, it's the
palm
back
of your
of,
hand?
it's the back of my hand facing out.
Okay,
What I-
because when
what I
you
do-
were doing it at first, you were off screen. And I
Sorry,
couldn't
it's
tell.
just I have a bum shoulder and it's hard for me to turn my hand towards me.
What I find that helps me is with the upper forearm technique is I take my hand, and I'm a lefty, and I have the back of my hand, my palm facing out, but I touch my hand to my nose first, and then I extend my arm out about that 10, 12 inches. And that way I'm sure that my hand is directly in front of my face, and I splay my fingers. So that way I've got a more of a buffer between me and what's at head level.
Now, Kevin is putting his palm out away from him because that's what he prefers.
That's not what you were describing.
That is not, because textbook wise,
Right.
you are supposed to put the outside of your hand or either like the back side of your hand or the outside where your pinky's at first.
Yes.
But that is Kevin's.
Yeah, that mentioned earlier,
Alternative.
there was the textbook way,
Mhm.
and there was the Kevin's way.
Then there's
Which is-
then there's the visual impaired blind person way that they want to do
which is why Alex is teaching us and not me. So.
it.
Yeah, I was taught the back of your hand out so you don't break a finger.
Yeah, so it's the finger, or if there's a sharp object, it doesn't stab you right in the hand, and you're.
She looked at me when she said that too.
I saw that.
So
Okay,
Yep.
then you're going to cover the cane part next, because I have like a marshmallow on the end, so it wouldn't lay flat no matter how I did it.
Yeah. So if that was the case, Marshmallow Tip. So you may need to just do the all hand technique.
Mhm.
Or typically if it's a battery or a pen, your cane will pick it up.
Right.
Did the card with the cane. So if it is a card, you may need to actually just use your hands to search
Mhm.
for the object, just because of your inability to find or leave the cane flat on the floor with the marshmallow tip.
Right.
And sometimes you can grab stuff around the house. Like I've been in positions where I've dropped something on the floor and my cane is in some part of the house and there's a broom next
I
to me.
have that on my list, is that you can use an umbrella, a
Right.
yardstick, or a broom.
But they're
We-
never where you are.
got on her, so.
They are not. So that's why typically, even if you're in the home and that's where you're typically going to be dropping something, you probably
Mhm.
don't have your cane right next to you either.
Mhm.
So that's where the hand systematic semicircles and fan technique come into play.
Okay. There was one other thing I was going to ask about that. When you're pushing away, if it's like a little pill,
Mhm.
Wouldn't that just go flying further away?
So you need, if you're moving slow enough, so knowing what the object is, if it is a pen or a phone or a card, you're not going to push that object away by moving your hands. But if it is a pill, going slow enough and gentle enough where you're just lightly sweeping your hands along the floor, it shouldn't push it away further. It should just be able to lightly tap it. So being gentle about you're going to just have to go slow and not so quickly. And honestly, if the slower you go, the more chances are that you're able to sweep at a better direction without missing any area. Kevin, it looks like you wanted to say something.
No.
Okay. Any other questions, Liz?
Nope.
Okay.
At least not
Awesome.
yet.
Not yet. So another thing that you can do is if you're sitting in a chair and you don't want to get out of your chair, you can use your feet. As long as you don't have any loss of feeling in your feet, you can always use your feet if it is a larger object. And then you can also stay in the chair, and again, protecting your head and face, you can reach down and using your hands in that same systematic approach to reach down and feel for the floor. Hopefully it didn't roll far enough away that you don't have to get out of your chair. So some common errors that people do, just because when they are doing these things, they're just going to forget, is what Kevin probably does forget a lot, the upper hand and forearm protection of their head.
Thanks. No, you're right. I don't always do it. Textbooks.
So that is a major thing that people forget. So really keeping that in mind, because that is actually the number one thing that you want to do if you are trying to find a dropped object, is protecting that head and face. Another thing that the traveler or the person that dropped the object does not search left and right directly next to their feet or their body and in between their legs and are directly a little bit behind their feet. They forget to check those areas, because where you're sweeping and when you drop an object, you'd think something dropped right in front of you. Well, it may have dropped right beneath your feet and you don't realize it. Or it may have rolled towards you rather than away from you. So just making sure that before you do all of this, you check right there in your general area, because it can make it a lot easier on yourself by just checking that area. The next thing is I like to call happy feet, which is people moving their feet or their body as soon as they drop an object, just kind of like looking around, even though, there's no point. They start getting a little flustered and they move their body around. So as soon as that object, you feel it fall out of your hands, do not move. Stop and listen. And then another thing is they don't use a systematic search. We want to make sure that when we're searching for that object, we're using the semicircles, we're using the fan. You get that perimeter first. If you are you can do a rectangular perimeter, and then you can go into that grid line, semicircles, or fanning. So making sure that you cover all grounds. The next thing is your fingertips, protecting those fingertips and making sure that you're not just dragging them or just using your fingertips to search the ground. You're using your entire hand. So either what the textbook says, either the back side of your hand or the outside of your hand as well, where your pinky's at, using that part of your hand. But don't just search with your fingertips, just tapping the ground or just sweeping your fingertips, because you're actually missing a lot of area, almost 6 inches of the floor, by just using your fingertips. And then again, with what Liz said, if you're trying to find an object and your pill rolls away, it's because people are moving their hands too hard and quick rather than keeping it a gentle, slow movement. So those are a couple things to remember when we're doing these searching for objects. Kevin, is there anything that you do other than what we kind of went over prior to help you find an object?
Well, one thing that I do, it's kind of related, is when it comes to the protecting your face, that discussion. I'm a taller guy for someone who's blind, and my problem over the years has been, my cane picks up something, but then there's something at head level that I can't pick up with the cane. I'm in a place that's not familiar, and then I bonk my head on something. what I used to do is I would wear a hat that had a bill, or a visor that had a bill, to kind of serve as a buffer, so that way my head wouldn't walk into something that my cane wouldn't pick up. So, for example, one time when I was in college, I was in a place, I was on the university's campus, and I somehow made a detour and I got turned around. And so I started going on this journey of discovery. And I was on the sidewalk, and there was a tree that overhung the sidewalk. And if I were like 5'5", I probably would have walked right underneath it. But since I'm not, I walked into it with my head.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wearing a hat, and it was disconcerting. I was very frustrated, and at the time I was like, why don't they cut that branch?
Yeah.
Whose idea was it to let this giant trunk overhang this wide sidewalk? But yeah. So maybe wearing a hat sometimes can help in a place that's unfamiliar if you're worried about, if that's a concern for some of you.
Absolutely. Sean, what about you? Any things that you've experienced to help you find a dropped object?
I'm trying to think, but I think y'all really covered.
Sean uses IRA.
I was gonna say,
There you go.
there is, you can always use devices. Also, you can use an OrCam if you are an OrCam user. I know that that's another thing that a lot of people use when they're looking for dropped objects.
Speaking of OrCam, I saw a demonstration of that last week on a webinar, and one thing that's really unique, something we're all going to get training on the OrCam. I'm sure it's one of our devices for our ATEC center, but you can say you have an item on a table in front of you. You can focus on that item with the OrCam, and it'll direct you to find you. Like, you can reach your hand out, and it'll basically tell you where to place your hand to find it. I thought that was amazing.
So that's just another cool technology device, along with, getting IRA as something that can help you in a scenario where you're really not comfortable bending down, or you're able to really find an object. Those are just some ways that, technology-wise, that you would be able to find a dropped object if you have access to those things. Any questions or comments or experiences regarding dropped objects? No? All right. So that about concludes today. Oh, I didn't even see that. Go ahead, Bob.
Sometimes if I scan with my hands and still can't find it, I'll put my whole forearm down on the floor to sweep, somewhat like the cane technique, but I can feel with my forearm where I can't feel with the cane.
Yeah.
Really.
Just be careful there's no tacks on the ground.
Well, if there are, I need to find them too. So
Right?
It would get real tacky real fast.
yeah. And step 2 is cuss. After
All right.
my mistake always was to cuss before I listen, and I have to wait till I finish listening and then cuss.
Yeah. So first listen, then let the words out.
Well, what was it that Vanilla Ice always used to say?
Stop,
Collaborate
and listen. I thought about that when I was talking. I was like, okay, don't rap.
I almost said
Don't
it, but
start
I'm like, I'm not, you don't want to hear us rap. You didn't, let alone sing. But although
it's all right. We almost rapped Snoop Dogg too. So
that was the show prep. So
anything else? Rebecca, no hands raised? Oh, okay. Go ahead. She what?
Oh, I had to unmute.
Okay.
Okay. Another thing that I've done, now that I think about it, is if it's particularly, since I am semi-sighted, I have a little bit of vision. I've used my cell phone with the flashlight on, so
Yeah.
that the flashlight lights up and I can see the or try and see the object on my phone by making it bigger and slowly sweeping back and forth if I did hear
Yeah.
where it went.
That helps a lot, especially if it's a reflective device or there's high contrast where you drop it. That will definitely help you a lot using that flashlight on your camera. Even for someone who is very low vision, it can still help with that as well. So that's a really good idea.
Because that's one thing I would have near me other than some of those other objects.
Mhm.
And then that way you can use Ira too, because you've got your phone without moving your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because moving your feet is the worst thing to do.
It is. Especially when you get turned around too. If you're like traveling just in general, walking, people move their feet a lot when they get turned around, and it's like the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, it's very natural to do that because years ago when I was experiencing a lot of these things, you know, my first instinct was to start spinning them around because I was thinking that's what I would do if I could see.
Mm-hmm.
I would do a 360 and I would look at everything to spot it, and so I still had that same reflex, but I didn't have any vision, so it was very disorienting.
And you can surely move your head, but as long as you keep those feet still. That's why I like to call them happy feet.
Right. The thing that I forget until I hit my head is that protect your head thing. And then I'll
Yeah.
remember for several months until I stop and then hit my head and,
Right. And then you remember,
Yeah.
gotta protect that head again.
yeah, wash, rinse, repeat. And if I lose things on the counter, which happens,
Yeah.
I bring myself down to where my eyes are counter level. So I'm scanning, I'm like looking at the counter
Oh,
with my eyes there.
like
'Cause
a hump or something on the counter.
Like the
Yeah.
counter overhangs the cabinet below it,
Yeah.
and it gets you
'cause
on the way.
if I take the lid off of my soda and then I'm trying to find, or water bottles, that's the worst there because they're clear and white.
They're so neat and clear and
Mhm. So I lower myself so that my eyes are level with the top of the counter so I can
Mhm.
try and find something that doesn't look like flat.
I find water bottles roll very easily because they're heavy, but they're not, but they're round, and when they hit the ground because they're cylindrical and they have weight, they take off.
yeah.
They get
They
away
do,
from.
and so do the lids. If you
Yes,
have
the
the
lid.
lid off, the lid will disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had those moments where I've tried to find a cap, and I'll get frustrated and I'll give up. So
Yeah.
later on that night, I'm walking around barefoot in my kitchen, and then there it is.
I do that all the time.
That would not be happy. That would be painful.
I even lose caps and I give up on it. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm just chugging this water now.
Yeah, but it's better. Just go ahead and down those because it's going to sit here with the cap off for the next few hours. So.
If it had the cap off for that long, it would get tipped over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Anything?
Okay.
No. All right. Well, thank you all for joining.